The Wilderness Within You, Day 4, Saturday of Week 1. We have a few readings, firstly from Psalm 69, verses 1 to 3, and then 15 to 17 from the RSV. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire where there is no foothold. I have come into deep waters, and the flood sweeps over me. I am weary with my crying, my throat is parched, my eyes grow dim with waiting for my God. Let not the flood sweep over me, or the deep swallow me up, or the pit close its mouth over me. Answer me, O God, for thy steadfast love is good. According to thy abundant mercy, turn to me. Hide not thy face from thy servant, for I am in distress. Make haste to answer me. From Psalm 88, verses 6 to 7, from the RSV. Thou hast put me in the depths of the pit, in the regions dark and deep. Thy wrath lies heavy upon me, and thou dost overwhelm me with all thy waves. And Psalm 77, verse 10 from Common Worship. And I said, my grief is this, that the right hand of the Most High has lost its strength. Isaiah 43, verses 1 to 2 from the Message. Don't be afraid. I've redeemed you. I've called your name. You're mine. When you're in over your head, I'll be there with you. And Mark 15, verses 33 to 34 from the Message. At noon the sky became extremely dark. The darkness lasted 3 hours. At 3 o'clock, Jesus groaned out of the depths, crying loudly, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Can I come back to you about something? I ask him. Of course, says Jesus. Well, if you don't mind, I want to push just a bit harder on something we were talking about yesterday. The thing is, when I'm listening to friends who are caught between a rock and a hard place, I can't help noticing that everything we normally say about God and humanity starts to sound like treacly platitudes. People don't want to hear that there is a pattern and a purpose in everything when their child is in chemotherapy, is throwing up stomach acid into a mouthful of sores. They aren't receptive to the news that God loves them when they stand at the graveside on a sweet summer day and watch the tiny white coffin of their stillborn baby lowered into the ground. It's not easy, you know. They get overwhelmed. Some of these guys have been to hell and back, if you know what I mean. Yes, he says softly. Yes, I do know what you mean. I pause on his comment and register how odd it is to be speaking to the one individual in the entire history of humanity who can say that with no taint of inaccuracy. And you get people who are right in the thick of religion, clergy even, who could quote you most of Good Friday with the book shut and have spent 30 years talking about the foot of the cross, and then something happens. A man has to sit at the bedside and watch the slow, grim deterioration as his wife goes through mastectomy, radiotherapy, chemotherapy and all its poisonous devastation, then liver cancer and at last death, and he just loses it all. His faith doesn't hold up. He gets overwhelmed. And you can tell him what you like then about how God has a plan and knows and loves us all, and his wife is in a better place, and will he care? The rage of people in grief rails against God. That terrible mask of mourning in a river of tears is raised against a silent sky, screaming, "You let me down. How could you do this? Why have you abandoned me?" And what can you say? Not you personally, I mean. Me, anyone. What words are there? What can reach them in that wilderness place? Jesus doesn't speak for a full minute. I feel the silence like a bubble of glass, brittle, fragile. I know he could, in his own turn, get angry right back. From the day he was born, there was somebody out to kill him. Soldiers, religious fanatics, politicians indentured to expediency, the same old, same old. The thorns, the spit, the spiked lash tearing up the skin of his back, the trembling struggle to carry his own cross through the streets of Jerusalem, crashing to his knees because it was too heavy. The nails hammering in, the thirst and yammering agony, no escape. What can you tell Jesus about what it is to feel abandoned? I hoped, he says quietly now, the ones who are overwhelmed and in utter despair might find the God they are looking for in me. That's what it was all about. I can't alleviate wilderness, you know that. What I deal in is not the stuff of fairy tales. I have no magic wand. I can offer only truth. And I know all too well that truth sometimes agonises you, breaks you. And as for the pattern, the purpose, well, yes, it's there. It is, truly. If you understand and can see it, it's there. And times when you can't understand and can't see it at all, it's still there. The same sun shines on the desert places as on the garden with its roses and fruit trees and lavender. In the desert it burns you because there is no escape from it. That's how it is. I listen to his words, and I hope I will remember them when these astonishing days of walking close to him are over, because I know such times come and go. He will not always feel so near. Watching his face, it is as though my heart is drawn out of my body. I love him so. This Jesus, whom I do and do not follow, whom I adore, but most of the time do not obey. I have in every case only one thing to offer, one answer, he says, just the same as I said yesterday. It's a promise. I am with you. Come hell or high water, I am with you. He looks straight at me then. I don't break my promises, he says.